I'm Richard Kaler. Thanks for joining me. Richard Kaler died on December 30th, 2015. Receiving that headline in a Google alert certainly gave me a jolt. Of course, the obituary was for a different Richard Kaler. And as I read the obit, there's many things we had in common, and one was the love of travel. I'm sorry that we never met. Sounded like a pretty cool guy. Even though I'm not ready to see it used, I have already written my own obituary. It's one less thing my survivors will have to worry about. Plans are also in place for the distribution of my estate. But I've not made arrangements for my funeral or a memorial, though my estate will probably have enough money to adequately dispose of my remains. Being able to pay for a funeral is a major concern of many seniors. Not wanting that burden to fall upon their loved ones, many people purchase burial or pre-need insurance. Now, while the intent behind purchasing one of these policies is noble, rarely are they a smart purchase. An article by Ron Burley on AARP.org entitled Prepaid Funerals, a Grave Error, quotes Josh Slocum, Executive Director of the Funeral Consumers Alliance and co-author of Final Rights, Reclaiming the American Way of Death. He says, some prepaid plans can actually cost you more in payments over time than the amount they'll pay out on your funeral. I recently reviewed such a policy that a client had previously purchased. The agent that we spoke with said, any charges that the funeral home sets are guaranteed, assuring us that the prepaid plan would cover all funeral costs. But when we looked closely at the policy, a completely different picture emerged. It was a whole life policy with a single initial premium of $3,600. The death benefit was a fixed amount of $3,692, just $92 more than the premium. A purchaser wanting out of the policy could get just $539 of their $3,600 back the first year. That amount was guaranteed to grow to a paltry $801 by the 20th year. There was no mention of funeral costs or guarantees of covering funeral expenses. The only item even remotely relating to funeral costs was that the beneficiary was the funeral home. With funeral costs growing at 5% a year, a funeral costing $3,600 in 2014 when this policy was bought, will cost $9,552 20 years from now. The $3,692 death benefit would then cover only a third of the cost of the funeral my client thought was prepaid. If that isn't a disadvantage enough, here's a few other disadvantages of prepaid funeral policies according to the Funeral Consumers Alliance. If you cancel, move, or change your plan, you may not receive a full refund. The cash out value on an insurance policy is almost always much less than you originally paid, as was the case in the example that I just gave. The money you pay for funeral arrangements now won't be available for emergencies later. The money spent today will rarely cover future funeral costs. Survivors may not even be aware of the policy. If the policy is irrevocable, the funeral home as the beneficiary cannot be changed. So if your family employs another funeral home, it may be difficult to get a refund. By the time of your death, the funeral home might be out of business or have a poor reputation. Now, if you want to set aside funds for your funeral, My advice is to open an account with a bank or a discount brokerage firm that has a TOD option, that is transfer on death, TOD. Designate a trusted family member or friend as the beneficiary. On your death, the funds are immediately accessible to be used for your funeral. You can access your funds or change the TOD beneficiary at any time. Your funds are not tied up, and you're not tied up as to who you want those funds to go to. You could even make a funeral home as the TOD, and you could change that at any time. This arrangement is far superior to purchasing a cash value insurance policy sold by a funeral home. Thanks for joining me.